Hello, dear friends. It's Carly, and welcome back to another episode of the I Learned podcast. This episode does have a video, so you can definitely check out my YouTube channel, Owning Authenticity, to find the video version if you do prefer to watch rather than just listen. Otherwise, sit tight because I got a lot to got a lot to catch up on here, which is totally fun. And I've had a great week. This week has further proved to me that I do indeed need to slow down. Um, it's just not as much fun if you're going to work so hard that you're too tired to even enjoy the fun things that you're getting to do. Um, so yeah, I do have some time off coming up here very shortly, and will be taking it at a much slower pace and continue to work it around in my mind as far as what my actual schedule is going to look like when I come back out of my brief hibernation. Um, but I think it's going to be a lot slower than what I got going on now. So that'll unfold, and we'll stay tuned on all that because I have a few things that have taken place this week that um, are just fun stories that I want to tell. Like the first one is this is officially the episode where I get to come on here and say that I updated my personal Facebook profile page to list my job as the creator of Owning Authenticity. And I put my website on my personal Facebook page, and I changed the cover image um, to the Owning Authenticity logo with the website on there. So yeah, that happened. That happened on Tuesday, um, just before I got on my coaching call with Melissa. She's my coach. She's my person who helps me to. I would say the biggest thing she helps me do is to clarify my intentions. Like through those conversations with her, I'm able to get and really specific on what it is that I want to do. And it's so fascinating how through those conversations, like the things that are standing in my way of doing that just kind of naturally rise to the surface for us to look at together. And I feel like I've come so far uh, since I've been working with her. And so, yeah, I highly recommend working one on one with a coach. I feel like any money that you're going to invest in that relationship and into yourself is going to pay off with dividends if I don't, if I'm not overstepping there. So yeah, highly recommend working with a coach. So Tuesday morning, I started to merge these two sides of my identity, and by this point, I am like, wow, I'm literally shocked at how comfortable I am. Granted, that happened Tuesday morning, and here I am telling you about it several days later because it was a bit of a roller coaster for a few days. Like I went through a lot of processing and understanding all of the crazy freaking emotions that came up during that process. I think my friend Trudy is out of town this weekend, but I told her, like, as soon as you get back, we're going to need to have a meeting of the Leo Moon support group because my goodness, my Leo Moon was hilarious all week. Like hilarious in a really cute way where, like, I'm so ridiculous. I'm so dramatic for one thing. For two, I genuinely was scared of being seen. And then plot twist, how it worked out at the very beginning was like, when you change your job on Facebook, it makes a post about it. And literally, like, no one saw it. No one saw it. No one reacted to it. Like, it just sat there, and like, I'm over here thinking, like, if a tree falls in the forest and no one's around to hear it, does it make a noise? I'm like, no, it fucking doesn't. I want to make a noise. My Leo moon was instantly like, why is no one looking at me? Am I seriously not the center of everyone's universe? Is that really, God, it's really holding out hope that that wouldn't be the case, but okay, all right, I see what you're doing here, universe. You want me to be more bold in standing up and saying I want to be seen, because when I posted that job on my Facebook page, I felt like I was really going for it. It was absolutely hell yes energy. The whole way that that thought came and pushed me over the edge, and like I actually did it, it felt so good to ride that wave and make that update, make that change. And it absolutely felt like a moment of owning authenticity, to like take a stand out in public and say, this is what I'm doing. And nobody saw it. And I was like, okay, well, that's an interesting space for reflection, because a couple things came out of it. I think the biggest one is, Melissa was really able to ground me into owning this work, like sharing about it on my personal Facebook page and merging these two sides of my identity is really about owning this work and being proud of what I'm doing. And so she's asking me things like, how do you want to feel about your work? How much of that needs to depend on what other people think about it versus what you think about it? And instantly I'm like, of course, it only matters what I think about it. And so it's just really fascinating in that space of like sharing something about myself to have it get no reaction, no response on Facebook. Um, it was such an interesting space of realizing that, like, I'm not doing this for the response. And I still feel so good and so proud of myself for doing this and like sharing this, and even being willing to like, go out on stage and be my authentic self and be seen by the public as my authentic self, even though the auditorium might be completely empty. That doesn't matter. That's not the point. The willingness to go out on stage was the point of that whole experience. Like, to let myself be seen was the point of that experience. And I did it. And I did sit with it and my Leo moon, which is, just hilarious, as I have to listen to all right, maybe I get to listen to what my Leo moon feels and thinks about all the things. Um, but so interesting. So yeah, I feel like I very much went into posting that with this still very active vibration of, don't look at me. Don't look at me. Like, oh my God, like, what if people look at me? Like, I was brave enough to post the job on my Facebook page. I don't think in that moment I really actually wanted to be seen, though. And as no one saw it, came this next level opening of, no, I do want to be seen. Not only do I want to share my work, I also want it to be seen. I'm ready for people's reaction, the good, the bad, and the ugly, because this was kind of the second stage of processing after realizing the only person who I really care what thinks about my work is me. I don't even know if that sentence made sense, but like, just put it behind us. Um, like, the only person whose thoughts about my work matter is me. And everyone else is observing from their particular vantage point, and their reaction to my work is really their business. And on the inside, from the inside, I love what I'm doing. I have true passion and ownership of being really proud of what I'm offering at this point. Energetically out into the universe, I am proud of my offering. And I do want it to be seen. I'm ready for people to look at it. I'm not worried about their scrutiny, because I'm connected to the soul version of this work. It's not about performing for the satisfaction of an audience, it's about performing for the satisfaction of myself. And if that's the goal, kind of loop back around to what I said at the very beginning, that this week has taught me that yes, I do want to slow down, because it'll be more fun to work at a more leisurely pace. Like, when I cram my days full of things, by the time I get to the last one, even if that's the one I'm most looking forward to, I'm still really tired. So, like, I want to make sure that, especially the ones that I'm really looking forward to, I'm able to show up with full bright, shiny energy and not be tired because I'm biting off more than I can really chew up in a day. And why am I doing that? Why am I working that hard? And all so much of it comes back down to believing that that's how I'm proving myself, or that that's how I'm being valuable, is that I'm working this hard, that to say that I'm successful I need to be working hard, like whatever. I don't logically believe that, like in my conscious mind, but I think in my subconscious, like there's still remnants of back in the day when that was very much how I operated. um, that's part of my whole recovering workaholic story about, when you tie your value to your productivity, you basically don't ever let yourself rest. Even when you're resting, you're worried about how you're not producing anything right now. So, yeah, that whole mindset, it's taken time to work myself up out of that to where I can let myself rest. I can let myself relax. It takes some doing. It takes some deliberate choice and focus and telling myself things like you can't pour from an empty cup, and it'll be more fun if you're not tired by the time you get to that event because of all the other things that you put on that day. And it's all fun. That's the thing. And that's where I get into trouble, is that it's all fun. It's like I'm following the path of most fun. I'm only taking on things that are fun. And yet, even though it's all fun, I still can't jam pack a day, like I gotta make space for rest, lots and lots and lots of space for rest. um and that was another piece of the Melissa and I conversation about, like, basically reorienting my relationship with self-care yet again, like letting that sink in on an even deeper level yet again, because, she pointed out that especially where what I'm doing is offering my energy, so much of what I do is just listening and offering a reflection to people, or like what I'm doing here where I'm channeling content. That's all of what I'm offering requires that I be aligned and connected to this larger energy, this stream of energy. And that connection to that stream of energy is actually like, it's the product that I'm selling, it's my logo, it's my trademark, it's my brand, is my energy. And so it is a business effort to take good care of myself. Like, that was how Melissa painted this picture on Tuesday. And I feel like that has really shifted something inside of me. So, as I say, I don't know what my schedule is going to look like when I come back after my little mini hibernation, because I'm thinking, like, 80% rest, 20% work. And the work is all inspired in that moment. Like, very little on the schedule is how I'm envisioning that. So we'll see how it actually takes shape. So there's that whole piece of, like, continuing to work on owning my authenticity and merging my inner self with my public self, so that there's really just, this is Carly. No matter how you're approaching her, this is who she is, this is what she's about, and that's clear to see, take it or leave it. That is ultimately what I'm shooting for. And I feel like this week has been awesome progress in that direction. So, toot my own horn there for just a second, because these incremental moments of progress are literally all there ever is, in my opinion, on this path to success. I'm doing air quotes around that. It's like we don't really ever get to any kind of final destination. So these little moments of celebrating that I took steps that I've never taken before, like that's a big deal. And speaking of steps that I've never taken before, what do you think about that little segue? That was pretty smooth. Um, I had an interview yesterday for a spot in a consulting network. So this would be a grocery consulting network for grocers who are opening new grocery stores, or they're planning a transition where either the owners are selling it or they're installing a new store manager. Um, I mean, all of that is, I feel I feel comfortable. attempting consulting. I've never done it before, but I feel comfortable based on my own past 4 years of experience opening my own grocery store and running it and transitioning it to a new store manager. I feel comfortable trying out these new opportunities to both be a consultant for other people going through that process of opening grocery stores and be a mentor is another opportunity that is hopefully starting in the next week or two. It seems like that's pretty much a green light at this point. Um, all of that new territory, like I've said a couple of times, like, how do you know when you've shifted your vibration? New things are happening, new experiences are unfolding, things that have never happened before. This is a perfect example. I've never been a consultant. I've never been hired to be a consultant, which consulting is like a big fancy word that I personally boil down into offering technical assistance of some kind, that you have an expertise that the other people don't have and don't really need. They only need it for one tiny little portion of what they're doing. And so they hire you to fill this little gap and then they continue on their way. So that's how I see a consultant, filling a temporary gap within a project or a business or something like that. It also combines the, you know, my trade. I was explaining this to my friend this morning, and it was just fun to put it in such clear terms because I feel like I don't do that much in these last, year or two. But my trade, while I worked at the software company and then in opening Cecil K's, like my profession is as a project manager. Like I'm a project management professional or PMP, um, which is a certification that my software company that I worked at was kind enough to pay for, and super grateful that I had that opportunity. And now it's like all of that experience that I got back then, and then opening the grocery store, it's all kind of merged into this potential new avenue of doing grocery project management consulting. So it's just so fascinating because, and this was something Valerie pointed out to me, was like, Cecil K's really is the gift that keeps on giving. It's so cool to track that manifestation over time because it really does go back to starting in 2016 when I found Abraham and got happy and was following my fun. And I followed my fun straight to resigning from my job and thinking I'm going to take a year off and let my perfect entrepreneurial opportunity unfold for me because I'm listening to what Abraham's saying and it all already exists in the vortex. So I got some money in the bank, some savings. So I'm going to take this year off and I am going to just like get happy and see what happens. And what started to happen was like these opportunities would come up and like I had, I think, 3 opportunities that looked really interesting. And it was like, it was unfolding. It was like things that just came to me and fell in my lap. And then all of a sudden the door would close. And in that moment, I'm like, ooh, I'm hearing what Abraham is saying. And I know that that means that that's not my path, that like, everything is always working out for me. Life is supposed to be fun for me. If that door has closed, that means that that path was not going to be productive. And the sooner that I can thank the universe for closing that door in my face to redirect me, the smoother and easier I will get to move forward. And 5 months into that process, my cousin Chad called with the Cecil K's opportunity. And that grocery store experience, it took us, 10 months total, 8 months on the construction remodel, and we opened February of 2018. And so we just had our 3-year anniversary of being open. And it's now run by a new store manager. I no longer do that. That was a transition that we made at the end of last year. So all of that to say, like Cecil K's also gave me my bestie Val. That's how I met her, was moving to Kansas to start Cecil K's. Cecil K's gave me my painting hobby through an unfolding related to a donation I made on behalf of Cecil K's. Someone offered to teach me pour painting for free. And so I learned how to do that and then painted over 300 canvases in the next year. So that was really fun. I made a lot of cool stuff and definitely just raised my vibration in general. I would lose myself in painting for hours and it was so therapeutic. And I learned how to do that and was brought to that path by Cecil Case. And even now, a lot of what I do in my spiritual business is natal charts. And I learned natal charts from Melissa, who was recommended to me by Jody, who was recommended to me to be my friend. A lady that I know and that Jody knows was like, you two should be friends. You guys have a similar vibe. And that lady and I had that conversation because of Cecil Case. So even learning natal charts can be traced back to opportunities that I got through the Cecil Case avenue. And it is incredible to think like here we are almost 4 years later after the very first mention of Cecil Case came into physical reality out of the vortex. And here we are 4 years later, and it is still dumping blessings on me now in the form of potentially getting to do grocery project management consulting, mostly from the comfort of my own home over Zoom. So yeah, things are unfolding, things are happening, and it's just so awesome to get to watch like one thing at a time unfold as like everything you've ever lived gets woven into this awesome life that you yourself have created. Like it's personally fun for you to get to live the life of like allowing your vortex to unfold one day at a time. And so that's really where I'm at. So I've debated and it's so funny because here we are already over 20 minutes into this, and the the whole thing that I thought I was coming on here to say hasn't come out yet. And I think that's because it's very fresh. And I'm going to take a second and slow down here a second because I do want to talk through this. It ties in perfectly with a conversation that I had last night at my Chiron event. Um, so yeah, let me slow down just a second and take a breath. And then, yeah, I really do need to get this story out. Because this is something I'm working on healing. And I think it's going to be good. So, the quote that we're going to start with, and this is something that I saw on social media this morning. The quote that we're going to start with is, if there is no enemy within, the enemy outside can do you no harm. If there is no enemy within, the enemy outside can do you no harm. So this is a story about that interview I had yesterday for the grocery consulting position. And the interview went amazing. I've worked with both girls that were there before, and I say girls because they're like my age, which is cool, and they're just fun to work with. And so the interview went awesome. I knew it would. It was so fun to get to hear about like how they envision all of this unfolding, and it felt like a perfect fit and all of that. And so it was going along so great. And at the end, they're like, great, so we would like to add you to our consulting network. And to do that, we'll just need to have a conversation with one reference that you provide from a project that you've worked on. And, I had already told them that I've never consulted before. So I, start kind of there and was like, since I've never done a project for anybody else before, really the only project that I have is the grocery store that I've opened. And so for that, I think the only contact I could really give you is my cousin Chad, who is my, 50-50 business partner in the grocery store. He's the one that came to me and was like, I'll manage the money. You do everything else creatively, come up with all of that. And I can give some input and feedback as far as like our specific offerings. Or our high level offerings, but like all the specifics and actually like bringing it all to life. And then the daily operations being the first store manager to get it get it rolling like a well-oiled machine. Like that was my job. And I knew that that's going to take at least a few years, you know, between opening the store and doing the remodel and then running the store until we could get the new store manager installed. And we did that, like I said, at the end of last year. So my cousin Chad, he's the only resource, the only reference that I think I have at this point in terms of being able to talk about what it was like to work with me on a project. And it was fascinating because instantly, I don't like this. I don't like that my fate here rides on what he will say about me. And it instantly made me nervous. I don't think that when I'm nervous like that, that it shows on the surface. I have a pretty good stoic face, especially in a professional setting. Worked on cultivating that sucker for years. And, you know, I think it takes a pretty intuitive person to see past it. So I don't think that it came off in the meeting. I'm like, do you want his email, his phone number, what works best? And, you know, put on my customer service voice just a little bit. And after we get off the thing, I instantly start thinking and like basically terrorizing is a harsh word, but terrorizing myself with all of the harmful things he could say. And I'm running through the list, you know, and I at that point I think I was just kind of on autopilot. That was kind of the gut reaction. That was my shadow showing itself to me. And that happened, you know, like I got off the interview and that was kind of where I was. And I didn't let myself stay there for very long, a couple minutes at the most, because I knew I had my Chiron event later on that evening. And maybe that's why there was so much crammed into that day, so that I couldn't just sit there and spin my wheels around in this, oh my goodness, what is he going to say about me? And stay on track here. So I do the Chiron event, it goes really well. And I don't really think about that again until I had a dream last night. This is my subconscious telling me like, yeah, you're definitely nervous about this. So the dream, it was basically Chad and I standing there, and there's this gigantic wall in front of me, like super tall, long, super wide, like look in both directions. It just keeps on going. And basically on this wall is my performance. It's our project from the last 4 years of, you know, opening the grocery store, running the grocery store, going through COVID, installing online shopping, switching to a curbside pickup and delivery model, on and on and on, like so many different changes and evolutions and growths that we've done over the last 4 years. And on this wall is all of it. And Chad and I are standing there, and the dream is him pointing out all of the things along the way that were my shortcomings and my failures, air quotes around failures. And so that's kind of the energy I woke up in, was like really not liking, really not liking that he's going to be my reference point for this opportunity that I really want. And what if he says bad things about me? That was just like, it was so all consuming that I didn't even see at that point how much that was such a reflection of myself that I would jump to a conclusion that he's going to say bad stuff. Like, so that brings us up to the quote I found this morning. If there is no enemy within, the enemy outside can do you no harm. And as I got that into my system, amongst all of these other things, it's like, holy fucking shit, I'm my enemy. I'm the one holding this subconscious fucking wall of my shortcomings and my perceived failures. I'm the one with the list that, like, getting off yesterday's call, and all of a sudden it starts running through my mind like all the bad stuff he could potentially say about me. I'm the one that knows what's on that list. I'm the one that has judged myself and called it a shortcoming. I did that. And then I've been like fucking projecting all of that onto him And that creates this tension in our relationship, which I am like 100% convinced is, I'm going to call it 97% imagined. Yeah, like maybe 3% real. And even the 3%, I'm like, he owns like multiple handfuls of businesses. So once again, kind of like back to the nobody saw my job post on Facebook, maybe his world doesn't revolve around me and any of the things that he's ever done to even give me this 3% of like, maybe he does think there are shortcomings to do with my performance. I think even that is likely his other stress coming out, and I'm the one that's again taking it way more personally than he's intending it. Like I projected all of my own being an enemy of myself. I projected it onto him and gave him the title of enemy. And as soon as they were like, okay, so we need a reference, and it instantly clicked in my mind, it's Chad, it was the pit of my stomach is sick. Like it's just a rock in the pit of my stomach of like, I don't like this. He's gonna say bad things about me. And that was me being my own critic. That had nothing to do with him. And I'm realizing that on a deeper level, like if there is no enemy within, the enemy outside can do you no harm. I don't need to worry about what Chad's going to say. I only need to worry about why am I carrying around a list of all of the ways that I've failed on this project that I literally poured my heart and soul into. I also found a lot of my own boundaries through this project, and I think there were times where I pushed myself beyond my own like energetic boundaries to where I did have moments where I was not able to perform the way I wanted to, but in even realizing that, it was a matter of like I overspent on my energy. I didn't take good enough care of myself. And that's why, there were these little mini crashes along the way where I didn't live up to what I wanted to be. And this all feels like such an intense moment of letting myself off the hook for all of that. And that is much needed. That is so freaking helpful. It feels like literally like a whole ton of bricks that has been sitting on my shoulders. I mean, not even for 24 hours, but like since learning that Chad is going to like give me a reference to these people that I would like to hire me, um, that was instantly a weight on my shoulders of like fearing what he was going to say. And it was such a gift, that whole experience. Like even if I never get hired for a single consulting role within this network, this whole experience up until this point would have been totally worth it because of the trigger it provided for me and the spotlight that it shined on my own shadow work and all of this processing along the way that allows me now to move forward as a lighter being and loving on myself more about I did the best I could and I did a really good job. Could I have done better and done more and accomplished it faster and like on and on and on? Like, yeah, if there was like such thing as infinite energy and more time in a day, and if those kinds of factors had been changed, sure. But for what it was, I did the best I could, and I'm okay with that. Like I realize, shadow work doesn't really work like that. Like this is one layer of letting myself off that hook. I'm sure that there is still, pieces that are going to continue to rise to the surface so that they can be healed and processed and let go, and you can let the weight off your own shoulders. Um, and for me, this quote of if there is no enemy within, the enemy outside can do you no harm. I'm the only one that ever holds myself back. I am the only one that ever stands in my own way. I am the only one that ever doubts my abilities in a meaningful way. And these last 24 hours, this last week of merging my identity and going through this process, and oh my goodness, I feel like I know myself better. I feel like I'm honoring my true self on a deeper level more than I ever have. And I know that this kind of progress and this kind of deepening and healing is only going to continue. So I think that that pretty much brings us up to date, 35 minutes later. So that was a long one, and I hope you enjoyed it. I feel really, I feel really good. Like I hope that's good for you. Um, it's so therapeutic to get to bleh and just like spit this all out, cough it all up. And again, it feels like such a release, like such a relief, a release of all of the above, of weight coming off of my shoulders. So thank you once again, and I'll see you on the next one.